going live here on YouTube.
And then it looks like I can't start my video. It looks like it was blocked. So Jeffrey, if you can turn off the.
Yeah, just a minute. Let me.
Thanks, man.
I just took over, so.
No problem.
All right. Let me start my video, and then there we go. I'm going to, let's see. I'm going to make you the host so you can start your video real quick. There we go. All right. Glad to see you. Welcome, Andrew. Everybody, this is Andrew Bustamante. We're going to get into who he is and why he's here in a few minutes. So
perfect. I appreciate it. Well, I'll go black, Jeffrey, and give you the stage, man.
Yeah, we've got three big topics here. We've got market madness. We've got our special guest, and we're going to take some Q&A. So let me do the screen share here. I'm going to take back the host. If I can remember. Let's see. Andrew, you mind clicking on me and give me the host? There we go. All right,
man, you got it.
Yeah, there we go. It hid the button from me for some reason here. All right, let's see. We're going to share the screen here. Welcome, everybody. If you're new, give me a shout out. Let me know you're new. Love to see everybody new. And if you're just, Peter's brand new. Welcome, Peter. So I'm Jeffrey Turnmeyer. I've been trading the markets since third grade. I started out playing the stock market game in elementary school, carried that on through middle school, high school. And then when I graduated and turned 18, I opened my first brokerage account and got to experience the .com bubble bust. So that's a way to start out my trading career. Welcome, Jordan. Glad to have you too. Brand new. And from there, I was kind of a stock picker, went along the way, guessing things and doing things and learning things. And for a long time, I thought I just needed to learn more about the stock market, and then I'd be able to do all right. And I had an uncle who was a financial advisor for one of the big name companies that does that sort of thing for people. And he told me the best thing I could do was just to not get involved in the markets at all, just to keep my money out of the stock market, and I'd do better than I ever will in the stock market. So that gave me motivation to actually make it work. And 20 something years in the market later, in 2020, I had a 7-figure year. Mr. Rob Booker asked me if I'd like to come on and teach people to do what I do. And in 2021, we launched Me as a Guru. And I've been trying to be the most honest guru out there for more than a year now. And so let's jump into some of the awesome market predictions. We have the S&P 500 chart up here. We have pushed into this support enough times already, and I'm expecting this blue arrow to take us up and out of here. We're going to see some action. It actually comes down just a little bit now. We'll probably pop up here and find some resistance around this area between 4150 and 4300 probably. It's going to look like this right here. An orange zone. We're going to have to break into it. So we'll probably see a retrace back out of that. And if for whatever reason that pushes us to a lower low, then that's the risk. But just know we're probably going to see a run up into this area. That's the probability right now. That's what we've got set up. This action today was super bullish going into the close. And if we can break on up through 4,000, we'll probably see a retest into this area. And then that's the decision point we're looking at down the road here. Do we retrace and hold a higher low and then move on to higher highs, potentially higher all-time highs toward the latter part of the year? So that's my hope right now. Don't trade on hope though, trade on facts. So right now the facts are we need to break up through 4,000 to see continued price action moving higher. We've got this prior high that we did just last week. Was it about 10 days ago now? Almost. Yeah, I guess last week. So we need to push up through that around the 40, 80 area. We've got to break through that high. So That's the big next test, 4,000, then that 4080, 4,100 almost. If we can get through there, then we're going to see, probably cruise on up quite quickly, quite quickly, and get up into this orange area up here. That's where the 618 is. So, all right. NQ, same sort of situation, working on building this move up out of here. We've got our symmetry. We've got our echo on the move down. We need to bounce out of here. We've hit this target. We've thoroughly tested the target area. It's time to try to get bullish. Now, in NASDAQ, that's known for big tech, right? We've got Apple coming up with the WWDC, Worldwide Developer Conference, on the 6th through 10th of June. Apple will typically rally on hope and hype and all this running into that developer conference because they tend to introduce some new stuff. And then once the cold, hard reality that their new stuff isn't as awesome and cutting edge as maybe everybody hyped it up to be, we see a retrace on Apple. So if you're thinking about trading Apple, that's going to be the overarching event coming up on Apple's calendar right now. That's coming up 6th through 10th. All right. Now, I do look at something on volume, and I've been working on it, and I'm going to put out a video as soon as I gain the confidence to show y'all. It's based on the buys and sells of everything, and it's a neat little indicator that kind of sums up the price action, where the transactions were, whether they were on the bid or the ask, and it creates a delta, and it resets daily. But you can see what was the price action like for the day, and when did the buyers take control? When price is pushing lower, and it pushes lower on less shorts, particularly in the futures, then it indicates that we're about to see a reversal. So I'll show that off in the coming weeks. I'm still working on making sure I've got it all honed in. So yeah, I've been using it on my charts for the last 3 weeks now. I'm trying to get all the tips and tricks so that I can speak to everybody intelligently and answer questions. I'll probably put out some YouTube videos. It's a neat little indicator, and I couldn't find any other guru that knew about it. So it's kind of something. I feel like I uncovered a little gold nugget in the market here. So you've got that to look forward to. Keep coming back and seeing me. So Russell has set up this higher low, and that looks super bullish right there. So we're working on that, moving up. All right, Fernando, I see you in YouTube. Cool, man. Glad to have you with me. All right. So we've got oil also still looking at this deeper correction possible here. If we can break out higher than the previous high back in March, then this correction is not going to happen. But right now, everything's kind of indicating that we're going to see another leg down, and it may hold the 80 area, the 80 to 85. That area may hold. It doesn't have to push down all the way to the target area, but that's kind of where it looks like it's gonna head. Now, it doesn't have to do this. We've discussed that several times in the last few weeks, and it's just kind of hung in there for a while. But it's going to look best if we get this third leg down. And based on this action so far, that's probably going to take us out into the summer sometime, July, August, possibly, before that ever actually comes into fruition. All right. Another popular one we look at, gold breaking back above the trend line today with the close. So that's this is one I'm going to be keeping an eye on because as I've talked about in the market roadmap update videos in the last couple of weeks, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, go check out YouTube. I've posted a video the last couple of weeks about a potential big trade on gold, GOLD, Barrick Mining. And I see it setting up. It's a long-term trade, like a couple years potential here. So you can go check out those videos and look at that. And as this progresses and solidifies, I'll probably talk about it during 30 Minutes of Awesome more. Bitcoin, we always talk about that one, still consolidating right down here in the target area. And so goes big tech, so goes Bitcoin right now. Even when they diverge a bit, they're tending to come right back together. So that is where we are for the greater picture. Usually we take a bunch of requests, but right now, since we have a special guest, I'm going to jump in and Andrew, if you want to pop back on here with your video, I'll stop the screen share and we can just talk here for a few minutes.
Yeah, man. So I'm doing my best to get on video. It looks like I need permission.
Give you the host again.
Or either that, or I think you can add me as a panelist too, man. One way or the other.
Well, I made you a panelist. You're on the list as a panelist. I'm just gonna get the host real quick.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah. So as I understand it, you're a former CIA operative, I guess you like to call it. What the heck does that even mean? Like, let's just start there. Like, tell us about what that even means.
Yeah, man. So the word operative is actually a movie term. So we call ourselves CIA officers. So there's a lot of stuff that's lost. So here's the real world of like secret work is actually very boring. It has to be very boring. That's what keeps it secret, right? Yeah. If it was exciting, everybody would see it happening. So we call ourselves CIA officers. When you talk about CIA agents, an agent is actually something that we call the assets or the sources that give us secrets that we recruit in the field. Those are what we call agents. So a reporting agent. But yeah, I was a CIA clandestine, which means secret, undercover field officer from 2007 to 2014. And then I left in 2014 to raise my family. My family was not something I planned on when I went into CIA. And then when I had a family and I was blessed with beautiful children and a wonderful wife, it wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted to give them. So when we left, we left and we started our own business. And now I run a business called Everyday Spy, where I teach people the same skills that CIA taught me. I teach those to people so they can gain an unfair advantage in business and personal security, relationships, in their career, because there's all sorts of really cool social skills, mental hacks, physical life hacks, all sorts of cool stuff that we get at CIA.
Well, I think anybody that's been trading for any amount of time will tell you that trading is probably 95% mental. And I think that's why the team out there suggested that I have you on, because I think PsyOps and stuff like that, that's probably where you're like an expert, right?
Yeah, it's funny. The whole idea behind mental strength and mental fortitude, self-discipline, mental consistency, that's a huge part of where our foundational training comes from. And it's critical because really the most important thing in any elite business practice, any career, any field operative experience is really consistency, being able to pull the trigger and hit the target at the same time every time, day or night, rain or shine, hungry or tired, whatever it might be. And that's exactly the same thing that you see in your world all the time too. You have to be able to make a well-rationed, well-reasoned decision under all sorts of stress in all sorts of various markets where things are unknown or understood, misunderstood.
Yeah, when you're down on those horrible days, you got to have the mental fortitude to cut it or stick with it and survive through. I mean, it's so let's just jump into it. You mentioned that you quit doing it to bring your family lifestyle out of it. So give us what was the craziest situation you got yourself into and then used your skills to get yourself back out of? I mean, tell us a story, man.
Yeah, so there's a number of things that are still classified about the work that I did in the past. So my primary focus, I'm ambiguously brown, as you can see. And the specialty that I had when I was undercover was actually Asian targets. So I was working quite a bit throughout Asia. And there's lots of reasons for that. Not one of the least is that as a brown person in Asia is still a very racially biased part of the world, and brown people are just not seen as a threat out there. So a trained CIA officer working undercover in Asia with brown skin was kind of a fitting thing. But what ends up happening is over time, we have something called cover degradation. Our cover degrades, it erodes. Think of it kind of like a sand castle. You can make this very awesome cover identity, but then with each wave that kind of rolls up the shore, that castle gets broken down until people realize the truth, that it's just a pile of sand. So the same thing happens for us. So the longer you're in one part of Asia, the longer you're in one cover identity, the longer you're living in one alias, the waves just, they crash over that cover over and over again, and it starts to erode and go away. And I found myself in a situation like that, where it became clear to me that the local police force in the country that I was in started to suspect that I wasn't really who I said I was.
Okay.
And the way that you kind of see that is they start to increase their surveillance, specifically what we call increase their surveillance sophistication. How they follow you, they almost always follow you, but how they follow you is significantly different. So when I started seeing that, that's when we had to start calling in some of the red flags, had to send a few flares and say, hey, I'm under very sophisticated surveillance. This is the kind of stuff that happens right before what's known as a takedown or a roll-up operation. So I had to self-evacuate out of a Southeast Asian city just by myself. My fiance at the time didn't know where I was. So it was one of those humbling moments where I crossed an international border in alias, just excited to be alive. All my stuff is still in the hotel room where I was previously serving. And then, it's one of those moments where you realize, oh, this could have gone very differently. And maybe I need to reassess my life decisions.
All right. I want to remind all our, our audience is with us here today. If you got questions for Andrew, throw them in the chat. If you're on YouTube, I'll try to keep an eye over there too. And, we're going to ask him anything and everything here, I think, right, Andrew? I mean, you're game for it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. I mean, I've had some pretty zany YouTube interviews in the past. So throw at me whatever you can. If it's classified, that's the only time I can't talk.
And my grandfather actually worked with Area 51 stuff, and to the day he died, he would not talk a darn thing about it. So I don't know what happened out there, but I understand the classified stuff.
Well, it's interesting, man. There's a whole generational change, right? The culture that you see in the United States, the shift from, things like the Great Resignation, and even what you see when it comes to like how people self-identify with their own, whatever their gender is or whatever their interest is or whatever this whole self-expression movement is, you see it in the classification world too, because old guard, people like your grandparents and my grandparents and my parents, they never touched whatever they did that was classified. They didn't ask any questions. It was like, this is the classified section. And then this is not classified, but I'm still not going to talk about it. Yeah. And then after that, then they're like, okay, we can talk about all this stuff. Whereas for me and my generation, our generation, Jeffrey, now it's like, hey, this is what's secret. So I'm not going to talk about this. But this stuff that just touches that secret stuff, I'll talk about that all day long. Like, there's no reason for that to be secret. We've been keeping too many secrets for too long. Let's share some of the wealth. Let's talk about some things so that we can learn from other people's mistakes. We can learn from other people's experience. That's the goal.
All right. Yeah, I'm with you too. My dad actually worked on the Oak Ridge stuff, tearing down the old works from when we built the bombs. And, wow. And he said he had to they had to bring in some of the old timers, and there were no plans for anything. So the old timers that knew their way around the works were the only way they knew how to find what was there or what. So, I mean, it's, there's some interesting things that are kept secret. And then, he said, I'd walk out with my notes and then they'd go through a derivative declassifier or whatever. And he said, I get them back and they're just holes through the paper.
Yeah. So those are called redactions. And we still see that now. Just to put I like putting professional terminology around people's stories. So what you're talking about when you talk about the old timers who knew the works, and they would come through and walk you through those old works, those old structures. Yeah. Those old timers were what was known as institutional knowledge. It's not written knowledge. Written knowledge goes into a database and it becomes knowledge management's responsibility to manage the knowledge. But in the Intel world, we rely on institutional knowledge that's retained in people with experience and who become institutionalized and who just never leave. That's a big problem that has actually been biting us since about 2011, because you have all these people who are approaching retirement age, or you have people who are actually private intelligence individuals who have developed 10 or 15 years of institutional knowledge, and then they renegotiate their contract and they become paid quite a bit more. So for those of you who remember the Trump era, when Trump started taking away security clearances from senior officials, if you remember that was him combating that institutional knowledge practice, that very unprofessional, unsecure practice of letting people just keep secret clearances, even though they didn't have access to secret information. It was a very interesting development.
Well, you and I were on Ask the Pros back, I don't know, 2 months ago, right near the beginning of the current war over there. That's what, if we want to call it a war between Ukraine and Russia. You had an interesting take that it's not just about who wants what land, but it's more about who wants control of what kind of energy. And well, can you talk about that a little bit and how it relates to the, our current situation moving forward here?
Yeah, absolutely. So for sure, what's happening between Ukraine and Russia is a war. There's no way to mince words about that. And the media gets it wrong, and the media gets very confounded because they see it as a news story. They don't see it as an actual strategic, tactical conflict between two sovereign nations. And it very much is. It's less actually about energy, Jeffrey, I would say. It's actually more about it's what's known as the security dilemma. So okay. The first issue causing the conflict is known as the security dilemma. The more NATO expands towards Russia, the more Russia is threatened by NATO expansion. That's why you recently saw Putin say that he could care less if Norway and Finland join NATO. He has no problem with NATO. Norway and Finland are not part of the expansion effort that gets closer to Russian borders. So he's kind of neutral. He doesn't really care that much. But Ukraine is right on the Russian border. That becomes a significant issue, and he has seen that in the past and sworn that he would never let that happen. So when you have one party, in this case NATO, oftentimes it's NATO driven by the United States, kind of testing an aggressor's stance. It's kind of like whenever you drag the stick across the fence in front of the Doberman, right? And then the Doberman starts barking and you're like, oh, look, we got a fence here between us. You're such a weak dog. And, I'm just going to tease you. Well, in this case, like the dog attacked the fence. And now people are surprised that the fence has all these bite marks and claw marks. And we shouldn't be surprised by that. That's called provoking a threat. So that's essentially what's happening there. And yes, Ukraine is a hub of Russian energy through and to Europe. That's what we were talking about on Ask the Pros, Jeffrey. Yeah. It's like this amazing, you see all these spider gas lines, they all converge in Ukraine, and then they consolidate, and then they head out into Europe. So that's a major piece. But a second big piece of that is that Ukraine is also has a vast store of natural resources, from gold to coal to nickel, rare earth minerals, trees, wheat, all sorts of things that they don't have in Russia. Russia has oil, and that's about it. It has oil and snow. So it needed the Soviet states to keep it alive during the days of the USSR. And Putin's no dummy. He knows he needs an alliance of Soviet states again to maintain Russian global power competition, GPC, to make it a first world country that can compete with China and the United States in the future. He needs those Soviet satellite states to come back. And if they don't come back willingly, he's not afraid to take them by force.
All right. That's an interesting take. We don't hear that sort of stuff on the news. So it's good to.
The news isn't there to give us information anymore, brother. That's what sucks.
Yeah, I know. I turn off the news. It's all about selling commercial, keeping those eyeballs on the commercials. So
exactly right.
Having you with some worldly experience does help put things in perspective, because I don't believe I've heard any of that from any other outlet source. So, all right, I saw a few questions in here. Let's see. I guess a couple people want to know if you got started through the military, or how in the world you got into that game. Yeah,
absolutely. So I'm a former Air Force officer. I was a United States Air Force Academy graduate in 2003. I graduated and got my commission and my degree from the U.S. Air Force Academy. I went and learned how to fly airplanes. I got my secret clearance flying airplanes. And then obviously we were very active in Afghanistan and Iraq. The war started in 2001. I graduated into a war-torn conflict, and they gave me an opportunity to actually go learn about nuclear missiles. So I was lucky enough to go to nuke school, and then I ended up being very successful in nuclear weapons. So I had learned Chinese language when I was at the Air Force Academy. I had a top secret clearance. I was working with nuclear weapons, and then in 2007, when the Air Force gave me the opportunity to leave, I was the first person to say, yes, sir, I'm done. I'm ready to grow my hair, grow a beard. I don't want to polish my shoes anymore. And that's when I got a tap, the proverbial tap on the shoulder from a CIA recruiter who said, hey, why don't you come sit with us for a day and let's see if we can't talk you into doing something else. So there's a whole story to that. But yes, I did get my start in the military, and probably about 3/4 of CIA starts out in the military in some way, shape, or form, either directly recruited from the military or former military that goes into the commercial sector and then finds their way back to government.
I was in the Air Force ROTC myself. I had full plans to fly jets for the Air Force, and my retired colonel grandfather and I sat down one day, and he said, if you don't get the things you want when you sign the contract, then all bets are off from there on. So they wouldn't budge on their end, and so I didn't budge on my end, and we ended up parting ways. And
that was a smart move, man. I'm telling you, what people don't realize, what everybody who's listening right now, who's a veteran, will tell you up and down, is that you become a disposable resource to the United States government when you join the military. That's the honor and privilege of serving, right? You are there to serve at the behest of your commanding officer. And if that means your job is to absorb a bullet, then that's what your job is. If your job is to invent a new airplane, then that's what your job is, but you don't get much of a choice.
I hear you, man. All right. We had talked a little bit about why we were bringing you on and how you can help people. And so why don't you talk about a little bit about what you actually do for people with your Everyday Spy program?
Yeah, absolutely. So Everyday Spy is it's the first ever digital platform for teaching real world espionage skills to everyday people. That's where the name comes from. And it's been awesome. I started my business about 3 years ago. It literally was just a presentation that I gave at a nonprofit fundraiser, and it just exploded from there. So I've been very blessed with a business that's still growing multiple hundreds of % every year. So we're about to triple our size this year, which is super exciting. But I'm here just because we have friends in common, Jeffrey, and somebody thought that it would be a good time for us to have a conversation. And I've been able to contribute to various folks who are in the financial world, whether that's I've contributed to folks in Wall Street, I've contributed to day traders, I've worked and trained with coaches and folks who do everything from sales to human resources. And that's really what it's all about for me. It's about giving people insight into the spy skills that they were naturally born with, because everybody's born with spy skills, they just don't realize. And then honing new skills for people who want to learn new skills or how to master their old skills. And it's funny because, Jeffrey, if you go to my homepage, if you go to everydayspy.com, or if you go specifically to everydayspy.com/quiz, QUIZ, I actually have a quiz, just a fun little quiz that I built for folks that will help you identify your own inherent natural spy skill, your spy superpower. That's where I start every client that I work with, from the ultra rich to the inner city human resource manager at like an orphanage. No matter where they start, I always want them to know what their superpower is first. So we start with something like this quiz, the quiz that you can get for free at everydayspy.com/quiz. You find your spy superpower, and then we just start stacking on skills from there, man. That's the fun and simplicity of my business.
All right. Well, before you came on, we talked earlier in the day. We talked about James Bond or Meet the Fockers, or Meet the Parent. Well, I told you I kind of identified more with the Meet the Fockers, guy. And you said, well, there's a reason for that. Why don't you talk about that real quick? The difference between those two.
Absolutely. So you can tell, I guess, from talking to me, I'm not what you see in Hollywood spy movies. I'm not a dashing, well-built Caucasian, 6'6", intimidating looking man. I don't have a sexy accent like Sean Connery. And, I don't drink martinis. The CIA never gave me a Lamborghini and a driver and, 3 different hot women to escort me to a party. That never happened. So what real life is all about going unnoticed. It's all about going undiscovered. And lest we forget, CIA is still a giant government organization. And if you know what it's like to walk into the DMV, you know a little bit of what it's like to walk into CIA. If you know what it's like to walk into a US mail post office, you know what it's like to walk into CIA, right? The plants are made of plastic. The walls are all this drab government manila color. It's all very dreary and drab and boring. And even what you work on is pretty boring, because secrets come in details, really, really minute details that are so nuanced that they're really extremely boring to study. So unlike James Bond, real CIA life is much more like Office Space meets Archer. That's really what it looks like.
I'm going to throw up the link here for your quiz that you were talking about. And then you said follow Everyday Spy on every social media out there. So that's those are the links I think we're going to leave everybody with here.
Yeah, that sounds perfect, man.
Yeah, so we got everydayspy.com/quiz for the quiz he was talking about. And I guess get on whichever your favorite social media is and search out at Everyday Spy. And
yeah, and you'll find me. That's exactly right. You actually caught me traveling this week, Jeffrey. This is my hotel room in the background. I've got a nice shot of the beach. Let me see if I can show it to you here. We've got a nice beachfront hotel room. Just taking the family out and doing the stuff that we promised we would do. You know, that's what it's all about. If you're gonna run a business, if you're gonna day trade, if you're gonna risk it all doing the thing you care about, then you got to do it right. So I apologize for my background, everyone. But yeah, you'll enjoy some fun adventures if you start following me on social media.
Yeah, I got my daughter's wedding coming up this weekend, so we've got a whole big thing. We're doing it at the Dollywood Dreammore Hotel in Sevierville, Tennessee. So. Oh,
nice, man! I've actually been wanting to go to Dollywood for a long time.
And we'll be there this weekend.
Dolly Parton, man, she's a hero in Sevierville. She's a hell of a celebrity out there. Not just in terms of fame, but also in terms of just awesome philanthropic development of that city. Just awesome stuff.
Yep, she's got her hand in everything up there. It's really interesting. So, yeah. Anybody got a final questions you want to ask real quick before we hop off here? So a little bit different with the 30 minutes awesome.
I hope I didn't end your 30 minutes with 10 minutes of
I think it was pretty cool. Like I was fascinated to hear you. We'll have you on again, I'm sure. I think Bodine here says, which Archer character were you?
Oh man, yeah. Everybody wants to be Archer, right? I think whatever character I have to be to win Lana's attention, that's the character I would be. That's all I can say. Lana had it right.
And William, I think we're going to give this a quick answer if you can.
Yeah.
Does Putin need to give up his power to end this war?
No, Putin's not going to give up his power. That's not how real power brokers work. And you have to remember that Putin and Xi Jinping and the big leaders of the world, from the Middle East to Southeast Asia, these are authoritarian, power-based leadership experienced individuals. It's not like the United States. We have a career diplomat, a career politician in the office of president right now, and we've been doing that for a long time. So it's different in the rest of the world, where people who have power build power and leverage power. It's only here that we have democracy that we really have to deal with. And I believe in democracy, and I believe in the power of democracy. But there is one very distinct disadvantage that democracy has, and that is facing down a authoritarian threat, which is why you see Putin just pressing through and continuing his war in Ukraine and having success. That is a successful campaign that Russia is running against Ukraine right now. No matter what the media says, statistically, when you look at it through the eyes of anybody who goes to war college, they are winning in Ukraine, and they will continue to win in Ukraine. That's just the nature of warfare. It takes a while. But he's not going to give up power. And if he did, there's no reason that he ever would. So he's not giving up power. And even if the war comes to an end, he's not going to be giving his power up to end it either.
You say war college? I was there one day. I had one day of war college.
Yeah,
I've done all sorts of little things along on my path.
So. One day of war college is really all you need to have it be fun. If you went through it for 6 months like I did, it's a whole lot less fun.
It was fun the one day I was there. So I got a t-shirt and everything. It was interesting. So I think that's going to wrap it up, Andy. All my followers, let me know in Discord if you have questions or want to follow up with Andy in the future, have him back on, and we'll get him back on here. So thanks, awesome, everybody, for coming. Yeah. Thanks for coming, Andrew. We'll see you again soon, I hope.
So you got it, man. Take care.
Bye, everybody.